I don't know if you guys can tell, but there is a lot of excitement, a lot of promise coming out of Atlanta. Now, where the conversation is kind of going to go with Atlanta is, what should the expectation be? The theme that you're going to hear a lot in this episode is expectation. And I know that the expectations for different teams, at least going into the season, is the same. You can look at the worst team in the NFL. You can look at the best team in the NFL. Everybody's expectation is the same usually going into the season. Now, there are some teams that's actively tanking, but usually the active tank doesn't start until you know as a team, as an organization, we're not going to be that good. For the Atlanta Falcons, they've been in this odd rut. They've been in this odd section. They've been in this odd mindset for the last few years now. They've had talented names. Atlanta has always had a talented name, a talented face, a talented player. But they've never really had the players around them to put it together. They've never really had that glue guy. They've never really had those players that when you put them all together, they make a strong, cohesive team. Or they've never really had the player that can get the best out of their best players. I think that's why the Atlanta Falcons, at least this year, is so fascinating, because they think Kirk Cousins is the guy to do that. Or do they think Kirk Cousins is the guy to do that because they drafted Michael Penix? Let me look at it. I look at it like this. When you have a team as young as the Atlanta Falcons, yes, you need good players. It's when you're in professional sports, you need good players. That's the name of the game. But you also need that player that can steer the ship. And Atlanta, like I just stated, hasn't really had that player. Do I think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback? Yes. I think Kirk Cousins has been a good quarterback his entire career. Do I think that Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback that can lead a team, lead a franchise to new heights? No. He had an opportunity to do that in Washington, was not able to. Obviously, he got Washington to the playoffs, I believe, but he wasn't able to go any further. Same with Minnesota. This isn't me poo-pooing or crapping on Justin or crapping on Kirk Cousins. This is actually, in a weird way, me bigging up Kirk Cousins, because there's a reason why there's excitement outside like in Atlanta. On top of that, you see they just got Matthew Judon, or I don't know if the deal is finalized, but they're in the final stages of a deal to get Matthew Judon. They're about to get Justin Simmons from the Broncos. This team has a lot of promise. And on top of that, the spoiler alert, I don't think the NFC South is going to be that good this year. When you look at the team as a whole, I know that people are going to say, and we'll talk about them a little bit later in the episode, but I know people are going to say that the best team in the NFC South probably is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after you saw what happened last year with the success, some of the players that they have on defense. But I honestly think that if everything works out the way that they're supposed to work out and everything clicks, Atlanta can win this division. This is the most wide open division out of every single division in football. Not because you have juggernauts, but because every team, I believe, outside of maybe one, which we'll talk about in a second, but every team, in my opinion, starts on an even playing field. Now, I know that that's obviously like, hey, every team starts 0-0, every team has a shot, but no. No. The reason I think that every team has their ups and every team has their downs in NFC South, but I think they're all close outside of maybe one. And a lot of pressure is put on, I think, this division because this I know the cliche is this is anyone's division, anyone can win. No, that's not usually the case. Like spoiler alert, I don't think anybody is gonna win the AFC. I don't think anyone can win the AFC South. Like that's one team. I'm not AFC South, AFC West. That's one team. This one, I think that with the new head coach Raheem Morris, with a lot of you're hoping that a Kirk Cousins can get the best out of a Kyle Pitts, which it seems like they have not been able to do. Understand Rondell Moore, he's probably out for the season, which sucks, but you still have Drake London. You still have Bijan Robinson. There are some really, really good names on this roster. But let's reverse and let's talk about Kirk Cousins for a second and the situation and the state in which he is in. During draft night, the talk of the draft was pretty much when Atlanta drafted Michael Penix after acquiring Kirk Cousins this offseason. And I heard a lot of people not understand why that move happened. Like I started this episode with, Kirk Cousins has a ceiling. You know, I look at Kirk Cousins, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to tie it in together. But I look at Kirk Cousins the same way I look at Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is who he is. If you look at Russell Westbrook from year one to Russell Westbrook now, he plays the same exact way. Now, that has been to his detriment a lot of times, and that has been to his favor a lot of times. Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. In my opinion, he's one of the greatest point guards we've ever seen. While he doesn't get a lot of love, or let me say this, he hasn't seen the uber success that you would hope a player of his stature would warrant. He has been successful. Again, I think he's one of the greatest point guards ever. He's been an MVP. He's led the league in triple doubles for 4 years in his career. Russell Westbrook is who he is. Now, the reason why I said Kirk Cousins reminds me a lot of Russell Westbrook is because when you look at Russell Westbrook's stint, let's say with the Lakers or with the Clippers or with the Washington Wizards, what you saw was people, teams, organizations trying to turn Russell Westbrook into something that he has not been his entire career. Whether you're talking about the Lakers wanting to turn him into a jump shooter, because the thing that works well with LeBron James is jump shooting players. Or when you talk about the Clippers wanting him to come off the bench. Russell Westbrook has been the same player since he came into the league. It's very hard and damn near impossible to change the makeup of a player later into his career, seeing as though he's been the same way. I'm tying this into to Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins has been the same his entire career. Atlanta knows this. Obviously, everyone's hoping for a championship. But I think Atlanta deep down understands that They understand what Kirk Cousins' ceiling is because Kirk Cousins' ceiling has been the same his entire career. When Kirk Cousins play his best, he is a top-tier quarterback. But when Kirk Cousins also plays his best, that's not really a champion, a Super Bowl caliber player. Now, mind you, he's been with good teams. Some of those men, I mean, he had Justin Jefferson. So if you're Atlanta and you're looking at that, it's like, yo, all right, so we know the ceiling. Now, if he does something different, if he exceeds that ceiling, then it's just a pleasant surprise to us. On top of that, this man is coming off of, a ruptured Achilles. So there's a good chance he might not be available the start of the season. Why would you not, I'm not going to say risk it, but why would you not get someone that you hope to be his replacement? Because at the end of the day, I think Cam Newton said it best. You're playing until your replacement is ready and until there's a slippage in your game. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. And I think because of that, it allows Atlanta and it gives them the wiggle room to, all right, we know how good you are. I think they have a 3-year deal. We're going to prepare for the future because we understand you're not great. Now, they did pay him like a great quarterback. For that, I don't understand, but shouts out to his manager. They planned for the future immediately. I think they looked at how, that's another thing, which I think was, at first it didn't make sense until you really sit with it. Kirk Cousins is good enough to take your team out of any chance of getting a good quarterback in the draft. So, but he's not good enough to take your team to a Super Bowl, to a chance. I don't think so. So it's like, all right, Michael Penix might be the best quarterback we'll get under the tenure of Kirk Cousins. So let's snag him. So once Kirk Cousins is over, we can figure it out with Michael Penix. Now, yeah, I know Michael Penix's age and injury history is a problem, but I understand the thinking with Atlanta. But I will go as far as to say this. There is a lot of promise coming out of Atlanta. And I think a lot of that promise is banking on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins. Because, again, they've had Kyle Pitts for the longest. I think he was one of the highest drafted tight ends in NFL history. I'm thinking they would hope that their quarterback can get the best because the quarterback they've had since, whether we talk about Taylor Heineke, whether we talk about Marcus Mariota, whether we talk about Desmond Ridder, you're hoping that your quarterback can get the best out of your once prized pick. Drake London has an exceptional upside at the wide receiver position. Bijan Robinson has the ability to be one of the best running backs in the. So Tyler Agler. Then on defense, like I said, now you're able to snag Matthew Judon from the Patriots. Matthew Judon is one of the best defensive players in football. You also get Justin Simmons. You also have Jesse Bates. This team is great. AJ Terrell. This team, Grady Jarrett. This team has some names, man. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that this team is good enough to win a championship or anything or Super Bowl. But what I will say is this team is good enough to win their division. A lot rides on Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is good enough to win the division. I just don't think he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. But I think that there's a lot of promise coming to Atlanta. Or not even coming to. There's a lot of promise in Atlanta, and I think that they're going to be really good this season. if not good, at least fun to watch. They have the players, they have the excitement of the fans. I think they're going to be a fun watch. So, and obviously, I don't know if he's going to be ready day one, but if not, I think that excitement. I'm interested to see what Michael Penix looks like against an actual NFL roster, and in the regular season. So. Oh man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.